Hello and welcome to episode 86 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On today's show, Marissa from Chicago and I are going to continue our conversation from last week on the announcements from the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California that relate to Walt Disney World. Anyone who heard last week's episode already knows that the two of us have some very strong opinions on those announcements. Sarah Says is going to be on the show in a few weeks to cover the D23 announcements concerning Disneyland Resort in Southern California, including an e-ticket attraction coming to Avengers Campus, a Big Hero 6 land, and a Mandalorian and Baby Yoda meet and greet. The U.S. parks, however, aren't the only ones getting new things. Before Marissa joins us, I just wanted to run through some of the announcements for the overseas Disney theme parks. There are some exciting announcements, and I think these foreign parks could be real bucket list locations for some of our listeners. Tokyo Disney Resort is getting ready for a huge addition that includes Peter Pan, Tangled, and Frozen. They're calling the project Fantasy Springs. If you aren't already thinking about seeing if you can fit in a trip to Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea, I really think you need to change that mindset after the recent addition of a state-of-the-art Beauty and the Beast ride and Disney Sea being a next-level experience. Japan is quickly rising on my must-visit list. Tokyo Disneyland's Space Mountain is also getting an update with an entirely new plaza that should be opening around 2027. Disneyland Paris is also adding a Tangled attraction and announced a new walkway to connect Walt Disney Studios Park to the upcoming Frozen Land being built there. As for China, Hong Kong Disneyland is also launching a new Frozen Land that should be ready next year. The park will also have a new statue of Walt Disney, which is inspired by him watching his daughters ride a merry-go-round and getting the idea for the original Disneyland. Shanghai Disneyland is gearing up to open a Zootopia land, and the company unveiled the Officer Clawhauser animatronic from one of the rides in that land. The Duffy and Friends characters, who are extremely popular at Shanghai Disneyland, will also be getting their own Disney Plus show, which may mean we can expect to see them making their way to the U.S. parks if their popularity picks up steam on this side of the Pacific Ocean. Now, let's bring Marissa back to the show to continue our conversation from episode 85. We were on the topic of announcements for Epcot. I want to move on to the statue of Walt the Dreamer, which will be coming to Epcot as part of the renovations to the front of the park. They unveiled a replica of the statue at D23. What did you think, Marissa?
I think it's fabulous. I love it. I think it's great that Walt's going to have a statue like that in Epcot. I just think that Epcot as a whole, once the walls eventually come down, is going to be such a beautiful park. And I'm so excited to see it. We've gotten so many great announcements, being able to walk through and see the giant Tafiti and then see Walt. It's just going to be so nice, and it's really going to add a lot of atmosphere.
I'm going to come out and say it. It is the first time I've made this a definitive statement in my entire life, but Epcot is my favorite Walt Disney World theme park. Marissa's is Animal Kingdom, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I love Epcot. It is the park I go the absolute most. There are times where I'm in another theme park and I'm thinking, why? It's like Poochie from The Simpsons, like, why am I not at Epcot? I love Epcot, but right now we really need it to fill out sometime soon because it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so great. And I do not blame them for a global pandemic. I don't. And I understand why everything is taking longer. But man, it has been tough to have your favorite park be Epcot for a few years now. The other thing that we got, and I think this was more of the Disneyland concept art, so I'll probably be talking more about this with Sarah Says, but Tiana's Bayou Adventure, we saw some of that concept art. They lost the tree with the boat inside that was from the original concept art, but we're getting new characters. Tiana, other characters are going to be in animatronic form. I think those were the only things that really interested us. People are complaining that they're doing it on the cheap. Animatronics ain't cheap. we recently rode Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, and it was your first time doing it while going through the whole queue. So you saw the Hondo animatronic for the first time, and you know that Disney can blow their budget on one or two, thinking of Navi River Journey, big, fantastic, mind-blowing animatronics. And I think we might get a really, really good animatronic of Tiana, or Tiana and Naveen, or, and the good Lord willing, Dr. Facilier. So I really hope that we're getting a couple of those top-notch animatronics, since basically besides that, all they're doing is a re-theme of an existing ride. So maybe they will have that budget. And because of all the drama going along with this, they have to make sure that this is a success. So I do think there will be a budget involved in this.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to dedicate a solid budget to this to make sure that it's a success and to make sure that everything is themed properly and the animatronics are, if not mind-blowing, at least new and updated and fabulous. And I'm so excited. This is the announcement that I'm most excited for. I know concept art is concept art and it changes, but the shot of the nighttime concept art was so gorgeous that I just like got butterflies thinking about how pretty it's going to look walking around when that is rethemed, when it has that Bayou flair to it. I can't wait. I can't wait to ride this. You know, Splash is one that I don't do very often because I don't like getting wet. I do not like getting my shoes wet and then walking around a theme park in them. But I will ride this every single time because I love Tiana, I love Princess and the Frog, and it already looks so amazing.
And I'm going to use an analogy from a completely different fandom of mine and go to the world of baseball, where right now there's a big argument who should be the American League most valuable player, either Aaron Judge for the Yankees or Shohei Ohtani from the Angels. And I don't necessarily think that Shohei Ohtani should be the AL MVP. I think it's a very, very close race, and I haven't picked who I really think should get it. But at this point, I'm like all in on Shohei Ohtani because of how obnoxious the Aaron Judge people are on the internet. And I sort of feel the same way about Splash Mountain here. I am just so excited for this to open. So the people who are being so obnoxious about it will have to be done. They'll have their one day to complain, and that'll be fun to watch that happen. And then I think we're just going to get into a new world where it's here and we're enjoying it, and it's still this gigantic e-ticket attraction at both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World. I'm stoked about it. Get over it, people. This is a great change coming to Walt Disney World.
Oh, it's going to be absolutely fabulous, and I think it's really gonna, revitalize that area. Frontierland has stayed the same for so long. I think it's nice to have a little bit of an update. My personal blue sky thing with this attraction is I want a beignet cart. I think, Disneyland gets beignets and that's fabulous. So that should also come over to the East Coast. Give us Tiana's beignet cart. I'll be happy.
They are giving Tiana a restaurant in Disneyland, and we don't know if they're giving her a new restaurant or if they're just going to retheme French Market. Hopefully they don't just retheme French Market, but Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World needs a good restaurant so badly. Please give us a Tiana's restaurant, just a full sit-down restaurant with a meet and greet, and we need this in this theme park. It is such a bad food theme park. We need to improve it. All the other Walt Disney World parks, great food. We were just talking about Regal Eagle in Epcot. The U.S. Pavilion now has good food. That's how good the food is in the other parks. And Magic Kingdom is just a dumpster fire when it comes to food. I'm not being negative. The other parks are great, And Magic Kingdom, I think, gets away with that's not the park where people want to sit down for an hour and a half and have a meal. I understand why it is like it is right now, but I still really want a great restaurant in Magic Kingdom. Get that done for us. And now we are going to move on to what I thought was going to be the negative portion of this, but we took the actual announcements and made it plenty negative in its own right. But this is what we didn't get. These are some things either we were expecting to get or had been previously announced, and we thought we might get some updates. And I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid, Marissa. I'm just going to start with the one that is going to drive you up the wall. We talked about this last week where you were saying, all I want is fill in the blank.
Fantasmic return date. What happened to it? Remember when we were walking around Hollywood Studios and I said there are two things I want from D23. A Tron reopening season, or a Tron opening season, and a Fantasmic return date. And I feel like those are both locks because Fantasmic is opening in 2022 and we're in the middle of September. And what didn't we get? Not even an update on Fantasmic. It wasn't even mentioned. It didn't even come up. They didn't even say, hey, winter 2022. It's fine. I'm fine.
The next thing we're going to discuss is kind of similar for me, where I don't know why they didn't announce this, because it was underwhelming for Walt Disney World announcements. There weren't a lot of them, and this one has to be coming back at some point. They have to have a general idea when it is returning, and all they would have had to have done was given a date, even a vague date, and it would have been another announcement. It would have been something else for Walt Disney World fans to hold on to when the only other thing we were getting was Hatbox Ghost and a Figment meet and greet. So I am really surprised that they didn't announce it. However, I don't think that means it's delayed or anything like that. They are definitely moving forward because we've seen testing shots and some other blue sky, that word's going to come back in just a couple of minutes, concepts for this new Fantasmic at Walt Disney World, and the Disneyland version so much better. So hopefully this will sort of shorten that gap or bring those two a little closer together. I don't necessarily think this is super negative. We just really wanted to hear that date. I think Marissa wanted to know when to start booking rooms for her next visit. Now, this is something I thought would have been really easy to just continue and take all of the goodwill that was built by making this announcement at the last D23. And at this point, you could basically do anything. You could do this on the cheap and everybody would still be excited about it. And I don't know why, out of all the things announced at D23 the last time, this one isn't being brought to fruition. It looks like it is dead on arrival at this point, and that's the Mary Poppins attraction in the UK pavilion at Epcot. It just doesn't make sense why they're not doing this.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll save some thoughts about this whole thing until we get through some other topics. But I'm really, really surprised that it wasn't even mentioned. And it does make me think that it's just goner, but it would be so easy to do. You could even just make Cherry Tree Lane. You don't even have to do like an attraction. Just give us Cherry Tree Lane and put like a permanent Mary Poppins and Bert meet and greet there. Okay, that's awesome. That's still something new you're bringing into the pavilion. It's still a great little detour when you're walking around the World Showcase. And it brings this, I mean, I'm heavily, heavily biased here, but classic, beloved, like IP that needs so much more attention than it gets. It would have just brought it to Epcot. Everyone loves Mary Poppins. Please give us Mary Poppins. The end.
100 years of Walt Disney Studios, or whatever, the Walt Disney Company. The most iconic movie. I know we're going back to that iconic word, but this is the Disney movie. This is what you, maybe Snow White, but Snow White and Mary Poppins are the Disney movies. It wasn't all started with a mouse. It was started with Snow White and Mary Poppins. And this would have been so easy. Like you said, just making Cherry Tree Lane. I wanted to mention this with the Walt statue that we talked about earlier that is coming to Epcot. We live in an Instagram world. You can like it, you can hate it, but Disney will promote the purple wall because people like to post pictures on Instagram of them at the purple wall. They're going to post pictures of themselves at this new Walt Disney statue. You could just build Cherry Tree Lane and let people Disney bound as Bert and Mary Poppins, and they would take pictures all day, be happy. They would gladly fork over that money like in Field of Dreams because it's money they have and it's Instagram likes that they want. So this would be such a slam dunk. I'm not even as mad about it as I am surprised that it seems like it would be so easy.
Yeah, it just seems like a no-brainer. And I don't know, maybe we're just heavily biased and we think Mary Poppins is more popular than it actually is. Maybe people weren't as excited as I was about this, but it just seems like something that the construction is cheaper and it's a project that you can do on a shorter timeline for less money. Why not at least keep it on the table as an option?
I am going to tell one of the most embarrassing stories from my teenage years, and this is going to be something that is going to get me made fun of in the comments. I am almost assured of this, and my mother is going to be so happy that I am telling this story. But you know when you're in high school and you have, like, you know, I mean, I did it too, so I wasn't just a nerd, but, you know, like, on your folder, you'd put, like, you know, I'm old, so it was like Pearl Jam rules and all these. I literally had Dick Van Dyke written on my folder. That's how much of a fan I was of this guy when I was in high school. So I was like in that you shouldn't be cool with liking Dick Van Dyke era of my life. Not that there really is an era where you cannot like Dick Van Dyke. But we are biased. We do love Mary Poppins. It is a great movie. But I do think that look at all the merch they have for it right now. We're not the only ones. It's not just us. They did a whole making of the movie. So I'm pretty sure that other people are into this flick. So Spaceship Earth re-theme. I think we were pretty sure this one was dead in the water, but we're now almost guaranteed.
Yeah, this is one that, I mean, bias aside, I'm even a little more surprised that this is gone than the Mary Poppins Pavilion because this ride is an existing current ride. You can see the wear and tear. You could tell that, you know, it's getting a little jerky. The track needs a little bit of love. Some of the scenes need a little love. Some of the screens need to be updated. And I'm really surprised that there's not any sort of refurb. Even if they were to go with, you know, oh, we're just going to do less than we originally planned. We're not going to add a new scene and we're not going to change the narration, but we're going to update screens and tracks. That's at least something that would make the ride a bit more, not enjoyable because I do think it's an enjoyable ride, but it would enhance it. So to get nothing for it, for the ride that's literally inside the park icon, is a little surprising.
And then the Play Pavilion in Epcot, which this building, the old Wonders of Life building, it's shiny, it's gold. They've been working on the building. We don't know what's going on with it. And to get no announcement, it's really weird because it's right next to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. It is right next to this brand new ride that is just drawing people towards it from other parts of the park. And they're staring at this building. And when I was there on Sunday, I was at Epcot. I was with my wife, Courtney, who pays attention to this stuff, but not quite as much as we pay attention to it. And she just looks at this big gold building and is like, what's that? And I'm like, well, that's where the Play Pavilion is supposed to go. And she's like, oh, that's where it was supposed to, like, but we haven't heard anything about it, but it's so noticeable there now.
Yeah, there's definitely attention being drawn towards it more now that Guardians is open. And I don't know. We don't know what their plans are. I almost would expect the Play Pavilion to be dead in the water, but they have to do something with it. Something needs to go there. It's a huge spot.
I don't think it is dead in the water because they've been working on it. They haven't just demolished it, they've been working on the roof. Like, something's gonna happen there. They're not going to make it more shiny just to have us. It's not like that Geico commercial or whatever where, oh, you almost got it. Like, they're not gonna do that to us. But it really is just weird that they didn't have an announcement about it. It's really weird. This one isn't even a big deal. I'm pretty sure we knew it was dead. And that's the Reflections DVC resort that was going to go at the old location of River Country. I think their focus now is adding rooms to existing resorts and not necessarily building new resorts.
Which I get. You already have the resort, you already have that, ground prepared, it's ready to be built on. It makes sense. The new Poly DVC tower does look really cool. But as someone who loves Wilderness Lodge, I will admit that I was excited for Reflections. I think it had a really cool kind of atmosphere vibe to it that I was really excited to see come to life. I'm hoping that sometime down the line it'll happen. Maybe not anytime soon, but maybe years from now they'll say, hey, you know what? We need a new hotel. What about this land that we drew up 10 years ago?
I do think eventually that land is going to have a resort on it because it is a prime location to put one. I just think that right now their focus is we just built Riviera Resort. Let's fix up the resorts we have now. Let's build them up a little more so that they are more desirable, like with the Skyliner. And let's charge $20 more for every resort room on property instead of creating a few where we can charge $700 a night. That's just my thought. A new World Showcase Pavilion, I think this was maybe too pie in the sky of us to expect it, but I think in the back of our minds we thought this was possible, especially maybe a Columbia to add Encanto. What do you think?
Yes. I was really hoping. I kind of figured that we wouldn't be getting a new pavilion, but I was really hoping against hope that we'd end up with a Columbia pavilion because I think having a nice little dedicated space for Encanto would be wonderful. And sorry, I have to jump ahead because I have to address it. But I think having that spot in Epcot where you've already kind of got the country's setup made, I think it fits there. I think you could build, the Casa de Madrigal and just have a whole pavilion themed around that, as opposed to their current Blue Sky plan, which I'm a little confused to see how that's going to come to fruition.
And we will talk about that in just a few minutes. We're almost there. I can tell you are wanting to spill the tea on your thoughts on this one, but we just have a couple more things to get to, and then we will talk about the two Blue Sky projects. Additions to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on the East Coast. The Mandalorian and Grogu, Baby Yoda, are coming to the West Coast, and I understand people saying the East Coast can't handle walk-around characters. Disneyland understands how to utilize walk-around characters more, but you can put them in Star Wars Launch Bay, which I didn't even put here, but is another thing where we didn't get any information on how they're going to fix Star Wars Launch Bay. No talk of a restaurant in Galaxy's Edge, which we were kind of promised in the original artwork. They need to do more to keep Galaxy's Edge interesting, and I was surprised we didn't get anything.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm surprised that we're not getting walk-around characters because, like you said, I don't think the East Coast has earned that privilege. I think that we've lost that privilege and we haven't earned it back.
I don't think we have the muscle memory. I think people on the West Coast who go to Disneyland more often are used to dealing with walk around characters. People in Walt Disney World are used to that being part of the Fast Pass environment. They're used to that being a queue up to meet a character. And it's almost like a muscle memory. We just don't know how to deal with it in Walt Disney World.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were talking about with that, the culture of having to be first and having to have everything, I got to meet Grogu first, and people coming to vacations, to Walt Disney World who maybe have never been to Disneyland, so they don't, like you said, they don't have that muscle memory. I could just see it becoming a very expensive mistake very quickly when little Grogu gets knocked down and needs, $20,000 of animatronic rewiring to fix him. So I'm not surprised about that, but I am surprised that we're not getting a dedicated meet and greet for them somewhere in Hollywood Studios. Even if it's not Galaxy's Edge, Launch Bay would have been perfect. I feel like they're just kind of leaving money on the table with that one. It could have been a great addition to Genie Plus there as well.
Information on Woody's Roundup restaurant that is coming to Toy Story Land. It's definitely coming. We see the construction there. It's kind of in an awkward spot, too, because it's right behind that big Woody entrance statue, which is a photogenic location. So to have construction walls back there for so long is a little awkward, but this is coming. We just don't have information about it. And probably a new restaurant, although they did announce 2 new restaurants coming to downtown Disney, like that was the second coming of Avengers Campus. But I just don't think they made an announcement about this because it didn't hit their radar. Coco was pictured as going into the Mexico Pavilion as part of the Epcot experience, but now it seems like they're just brushing that off about the Dia de los Muertos exhibit that is in the Mexico Pavilion now. They already have a ride there, but it's not a big draw. So I do think that it would make sense to overlay this with Coco, but maybe Coco is coming somewhere else, teasing the blue sky thing. Something I was looking forward to coming to Epcot, heading back over there, was the new 360 show in the China Pavilion. This was supposed to have new technology, so you weren't going to see the black lines in between every screen. It was going to be more of a complete 360 movie. And I like the old China movie that's playing right now, Reflections of China, but man, is it dated. It is really, really dated, and something cool to bring into the China Pavilion, which should be, in my humble opinion, a pavilion that really, really draws people. You have a Mulan meet and greet. You have a great store, not a good store, a great store. The restaurants are okay, but China should be drawing people. This should be a pavilion that really attracts a lot of people. And if it was just a new 360 movie, okay, at least it's something. At least it's that first culture in Disney where everybody wants to see this new movie, but we didn't get any information on it. I wonder if that's dead in the water.
I think it might be, unfortunately, just because they're like, in their minds, they're probably thinking, well, we can just keep playing the same one. We still have one there. It's not like there's nothing there. I think it would be nice to breathe a little new life into that area, give us a new updated movie. And again, that's something that I can't imagine costs nearly as much as some things that they're speculating to do. So maybe that would have been a nice thing to give us a firm update on something that's a little cheaper.
We hardly ever delve into anything remotely political on this show, but sometimes we do have to defend people who are being unfairly attacked. And this is not addressing any sort of politics except for the fact that I don't think China wants their video to say, and then everybody thinks of Tiananmen Square, because I think they want to change that at some point. And I would think that China would want a new video in there at some point as well. And one final thing, getting back to Magic Kingdom, we didn't get. A lot of people were thinking the Main Street Electrical Parade might have been returning to the East Coast. I think that might have been a little too much wishful thinking from people, because I think Magic Kingdom at night, right before fireworks or right after fireworks, is just too crowded on Main Street USA to make a nighttime parade happen.
That's pretty much exactly my thoughts on it. I wasn't surprised at all we didn't get this. I know a lot of people were disappointed, and I get it. Nighttime parades are super cool. I understand wanting one. I just don't think that Magic Kingdom is the most practical park for one.
This is almost like the walk-around character meet and greets. It's not in Walt Disney World muscle memory anymore. I know when I was a kid, the Main Street Electrical Parade was at Walt Disney World, and people my age might be like, oh, of course Magic Kingdom can handle it. Of course Walt Disney World can handle it. We handled it back then. Yeah, and we handled walk-around characters back then too. It's a different vibe. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just what it is right now. Walt Disney World is such a conveyor belt, assembly line type vacation now, that there are certain things that I just don't think work in Walt Disney World, and a nighttime parade is one of them. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
I agree.
If you can believe it, and the way we talk, I don't know why you wouldn't believe it. This topic is going to take Marissa and I 3 full episodes to complete. I promise that we will finish the conversation on D23 announcements for Walt Disney World next Thursday in episode 87 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. After that, Sarah Says will return to the show to give her take on what's going to be coming to Disneyland Resort in Southern California after the D23 Expo. Don't forget that my fundraiser for CASA of Pinellas County, Florida, in honor of my pilgrimage on Ireland's National Famine Way, will wrap up on October 31st of 2022, which is the last day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm asking that all of you take a moment to donate $10 to CASA at casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ That's CASAPINELLAS.org/walkwithrick/. Please make sure to subscribe to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel to be in the loop for when I post some new videos from Walt Disney World and other travel destinations. The podcast will return next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.